Imagine a state of peace that requires you to keep your finger hovering right over the trigger. It sounds completely contradictory, right? I mean, historically, think about how ceasefires used to work. If we go back to, say, World War I, an armistice meant the bugles blew, the shooting stopped instantly, and exhausted soldiers actually stepped out of their trenches to exchange rations. A ceasefire meant a definitive, hard stop. But according to a really fascinating recent report from the Sunnathals Observatory, that traditional concept of a truce, it's completely dead. Today, we are looking at a deeply concerning geopolitical reality, a declared ceasefire that functions identically to an active war. In this explainer, we're going to unpack this incredible paradox. We are going to systematically break down the rhetoric and the strategic posturing currently coming out of Tehran, all to understand this massive, glaring disconnect between diplomatic declarations and the highly kinetic military reality on the ground.
So it's a stark question, and honestly, it's the one that frames our entire analysis today. When exactly does a ceasefire not mean peace? Because historically, a ceasefire is the finish line, or at the very least, a really long water break. But the source material we're analyzing today suggests that in modern conflicts, a ceasefire is simply a change in tactics. It's just a different shade of conflict entirely. It's not a step toward peace. It's an active, highly aggressive holding pattern.
Okay, let's dive into this. We'll start with the ceasefire paradox itself, look at the uninterrupted surveillance happening right now, examine the roots of strategic distrust, check out the shift to new domains, and finally, the breakdown of modern deterrence. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Ceasefire Paradox.
Traditionally, when we hear ceasefire, it implies a mutual end to hostilities. It means troops return to the barracks, supply lines powered down, the engines are cut. Everyone basically takes a breath. But the Sunnathals report details a drastically different reality on the ground, which they classify as active war conditions. What does that look like? It means radars are continuously spinning, it means fighter jet engines are idling on the tarmac, and weapons remain hot. The traditional expectation of peace completely contradicts Tehran's strict, explicitly reported military posture. They are absolutely not standing down. Instead, they're utilizing the diplomatic pause to solidify their tactical readiness, literally turning the very concept of a truce inside out.
And the thing is, we don't have to guess about their intentions here, because the rhetoric is crystal clear. This quote comes directly from the Iranian army spokesperson, Mohammad Akrami Nia. Now, the context here is absolutely crucial. He wasn't speaking in some leaked private military memo. He broadcasted this directly on state television. He explicitly states that Tehran continues to operate under active war conditions, and he stresses that the ceasefire does not mark the end of hostilities. When a military apparatus publicly broadcasts its strategy like this, it's actively signaling to the world that the diplomatic label of a ceasefire doesn't change their operational reality one bit. It's a highly calculated projection of power.
Section 2. Uninterrupted surveillance and alert.
According to the report, Tehran's ongoing operations include uninterrupted regional surveillance, continuous monitoring of all fronts, and ongoing military preparations. We really need to pause and think about exactly how this kind of surveillance is achieved today, because it is staggering. We're not talking about guys with binoculars looking over a border wall. In a modern context, continuous monitoring means advanced signals intelligence, or SIGINT, actively scraping regional communications 24/7. It means uncrewed aerial vehicles, drones, running relentless, endless sweep patterns in the airspace. It means cyber units working around the clock to monitor network traffic for any microscopic sign of enemy mobilization. Maintaining this level of continuous military surveillance during ongoing regional tensions requires an immense, constant drain on resources, fuel, and manpower. It's incredibly expensive and physically exhausting for the personnel, which just proves how completely committed they are to treating this pause as an active engagement.
So, what does all fronts actually require? Well, in modern Middle Eastern geopolitics, it implies a massive, complex, and highly coordinated logistical effort. It means locking together conventional army forces, overlapping air defense systems, and scattered intelligence networks all at the same time, with absolutely zero reduction in operational tempo. When you have a military functioning under heightened alert across all fronts, every single branch is communicating in real time, essentially waiting for a spark. The sheer scale of maintaining this posture indefinitely, it's a massive undertaking.
Section 3. Rooted in Strategic Distrust.
The report points directly to this core concept, strategic distrust. This is a fundamental, deeply ingrained lack of trust in adversaries. The report specifically names Washington and Tel Aviv here, and it's this distrust that drives a nation to treat a ceasefire as a temporary extension of conflict rather than genuine de-escalation. The Iranian spokesperson made it absolutely clear that their posture is shaped entirely by this dynamic. You have to understand, this isn't just standard political wariness. This is the result of decades of complex policy, shifting treaties, and intense proxy engagements. Over time, these historical layers have taught the actors involved that any pause in fighting is simply a vulnerability waiting to be exploited. It's this foundational barrier that explicitly dictates Tehran's total refusal to stand down its forces.
And because of that profound distrust, Tehran fundamentally rejects the premise of a genuine conclusion to the conflict. There's no genuine de-escalation happening here. Instead, this period is treated entirely as a tactical extension. The whole focus shifts to reinforcing defense postures, maybe rotating out tired units for fresh ones, and maintaining full 100% preparedness for potential escalation. They're treating the pause in shooting not as peace, but as that deep breath before the bell rings for the next round.
Section 4. Expanding to new domains. Now let's see how this builds, because the spokesperson actually detailed a highly specific three-step sequence of escalation. First, if the enemy initiates renewed aggression. Second, Iran will trigger the deployment of new tools and new methods. And third, this will result in expanded operational tactics across entirely new domains. This is a major shift. The traditional, predictable patterns of retaliation that international analysts have historically come to expect, those are permanently shifting. The exact phrasing in the broadcast warns of a different level of response, utilizing new tools and new methods. We need to deeply unpack what expanding to new domains actually implies, because, honestly, it's the most critical shift in modern warfare. A move to new domains is a deliberate departure from kinetic, traditional warfare. Conventional airstrikes or ground skirmishes. In today's highly advanced military landscape, new domains almost always point toward devastating asymmetric arenas. This means we could be looking at expanded cyber operations designed to cripple financial or power infrastructures from literally thousands of miles away. It could mean space-based signal jamming to blind an adversary's GPS systems, or deploying AI-driven drone swarms over the horizon that traditional air defenses just struggle to track. Now, the exact weapons aren't listed, but the implication is staggering. Any future military engagements will break the old rules and be highly unpredictable. Section 5. The breakdown of deterrence.
When we step back and look at the macro shift, the contrast is really jarring. In a traditional conflict, a ceasefire meant a stand down of forces. Today, it means active war conditions. Traditionally, deterrence relied on treaties and the concept of mutually assured destruction to create a genuine pause. But today, strategic distrust fuels a constant state of alert where no piece of paper guarantees safety. And while retaliation used to follow predictable, almost formalized patterns, the modern reality promises expanded tactics in brand new, highly unpredictable domains. It brilliantly illustrates that the traditional models of conflict, deterrence, have fundamentally failed to create actual peace on the ground.
So let's summarize the crucial takeaways from our analysis today, because these 4 points represent a permanent paradigm shift in how global conflicts are going to be managed moving forward. First, traditional deterrence is breaking down right before our eyes. Second, as we've seen super clearly from Tehran's own public rhetoric, ceasefires now function strictly as active war conditions. Third, military strategy is officially shifting away from standard operational tactics and aggressively moving into new, unpredictable, asymmetric domains. And finally, none of this changes until the root cause is addressed. Deep strategic distrust entirely outweighs any diplomatic attempts at de-escalation.
Which brings us right back to our core paradox, leaving us with a rather profound, maybe even unsettling question to ponder. If a declared ceasefire is no longer a tool for peace, but simply an extension of active war, continuous tactical surveillance, and heightened alert, how can regional stability ever be achieved in the modern era? When the very mechanism designed to stop the fighting becomes just another phase of the conflict, the future of international diplomacy remains incredibly uncertain. Keep that question in mind as you watch global events continue to unfold, because, as we've seen today, the definition of war itself is being rewritten right before our eyes.